What if everything you thought you knew about yourself was wrong? What if beneath your daily choices, ambitions, and beliefs, there lived a stranger, you, waiting to be discovered? Imagine walking through the bustling streets of ancient Athens. The air is thick with debate. Philosophers line the agora like musicians on a street corner, each singing their song of truth. And there, barefoot, with a cloak worn thin by time and conversation, stands a man with piercing eyes and a disarming smile. He asks a simple question: what is the good life? You try to answer, but instead of nodding, he questions your words, then questions your reasoning, then questions your assumptions, not to humiliate, but to lead you somewhere deeper, into the unexplored corridors of your own mind. This man is Socrates, and he doesn't claim to know the truth. He claims to know how to find it. And this, perhaps, is what makes Socrates so dangerous and so timeless. His questions shake the walls we build inside ourselves, walls made of unexamined opinions, secondhand beliefs, and social conditioning. He invites us to live, not like machines reacting to the world, but as conscious beings capable of awakening. Who was Socrates? Socrates is often hailed as the father of Western philosophy, yet he wrote no books, left no manifestos, and started no schools. His classroom was the open air, his audience anyone who dared to think, and his legacy was carried forward by students like Plato, who later mentored Aristotle, shaping the entire foundation of Western thought. Socrates was radically different. At a time when truth was often sold to the highest bidder by smooth-talking sophists, Socrates offered something far more dangerous: honest inquiry. He never claimed to teach anything. Instead, he claimed to be a midwife of the soul, helping others give birth to their own understanding. He was known for his humility, his wit, and his refusal to conform to the expectations of society. He avoided wealth, power, and fame, living instead in alignment with what he believed was the soul's deepest calling: to seek truth and live justly. He saw philosophy not as an academic discipline, but as a way of life, a daily practice of inner clarity and ethical alignment. What is self-knowledge? To Socrates, self-knowledge wasn't just a psychological hobby, it was the cornerstone of virtue and wisdom. His most famous quote, "Know thyself." Carved into the temple of Apollo at Delphi, these words weren't a suggestion, they were a commandment. To Socrates, understanding yourself, your desires, your values, your contradictions, wasn't optional. It was the very essence of what it meant to be human. Self-knowledge for Socrates wasn't merely about introspection. It was about uncovering the truth that lies beneath layers of ego and illusion. He believed that much of human suffering stems from ignorance about who we are and what we truly need. Without knowing ourselves, we chase shadows, mistake pleasure for happiness, and act out of fear rather than wisdom. Knowing oneself, then, becomes the gateway to authentic freedom. Socrates believed that truth is not something taught, but something uncovered. He pioneered a method we now call the Socratic method, a disciplined, thoughtful dialogue where questions are asked not to trap, but to liberate. Here's how it worked. A claim is made. For example, justice means helping your friends and harming your enemies. Socrates asked questions. What if your friend is unjust? Should you still help them? Can justice include harming anyone? Contradictions are revealed. The original claim begins to unravel under the pressure of reasoning. Deeper understanding is pursued. You don't end up with an answer. You end up with a better question. This method wasn't just intellectual, it was transformational. Socrates' questioning could unsettle even the most confident citizens of Athens. His dialogues exposed how often people held strong beliefs without ever deeply examining them. He invited people to slow down, reflect, and explore the deeper assumptions behind their words. In a world addicted to certainty, Socrates dared to live in the open space of not knowing, and that was revolutionary. Socrates' most remarkable ideas. 1. The unexamined life is not worth living. When put on trial for corrupting the youth and impiety, Socrates refused to stop questioning. In his defense, recorded by Plato in the Apology, he said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." He would rather die than stop seeking the truth. To Socrates, life was not measured in years but in reflection. A life without inner dialogue, without challenging one's beliefs was no better than sleepwalking. Death to him was not the ultimate fear. Ignorance was. He stood before the jury, not as a defiant rebel, but as a man of integrity who lived by what he taught, that truth and virtue are worth dying for. 2. Intellectual humility. Socrates claimed he was wise only because he knew that he knew nothing. The oracle at Delphi called him the wisest man alive, not because he had all the answers, but because he recognized his ignorance. This idea is profoundly humbling. In a world where people often pretend to know everything, Socrates embraced not knowing as a strength. This humility became the starting point for all wisdom. By emptying himself of certainty, he made room for genuine insight to emerge. His courage to admit ignorance continues to inspire thinkers, scientists, and seekers across millennia. 3. Virtue is knowledge. For Socrates, to know the good is to do the good. If you truly understand what is right, you will act rightly. Evil, therefore, comes from ignorance, not malice. This idea places tremendous responsibility on education, not just formal schooling, but deep moral and spiritual education. If people do wrong, Socrates believed, it's not because they are inherently bad, but because they are disconnected from wisdom. Real ethics, then, is not about punishment, but awakening, about helping people come into alignment with the good through understanding. 4. Philosophy as a way of life. Socrates didn't see philosophy as abstract theory. To him, it was a form of spiritual practice, a way to care for the soul by examining life, death, desire, justice, and love. He walked the streets not to lecture, but to provoke insight. Every conversation, every question, was an act of devotion. His philosophy was lived, not just studied. In this way, Socrates stands closer to mystics and sages than academic scholars. He believed the soul could be nourished through dialogue, and that wisdom was a lifelong practice, a modern mirror. Think about today. We live in an age of instant answers. Search engines finish our questions before we've even thought them through. But in this flood of information, how much of it is wisdom? How often do we pause, not just to know more, but to know ourselves? Socrates invites us to stop scrolling and start asking, not just, what should I do with my life? But what is life? What is good? What am I? In a time of endless noise, the Socratic method becomes a kind of silence, a contemplative space where clarity can emerge. It's a call to inner activism, a rebellion against shallowness. It reminds us that philosophy is not dead, dusty, or distant. It's a torch we can carry right now into the darkness of our own confusion. Socrates died by drinking poison, condemned by the state, but immortal in history. He left no grand monument, no army, no empire. Only a method, only a question, only the eternal whisper, know thyself. And maybe if you follow that voice into the quiet corners of your mind, you'll find something better than knowledge. You'll find wisdom, because the Socratic path is not a journey outward. It's a spiral inward into the mysteries of the soul. And there, in the heart of questioning, you might just remember what it means to be truly alive.